Just for everybody's reference, we are live. Oh, you're fine.
Come on, Dennis.
I'm glad I didn't tell that punchline that you. Not really. I got another one here.
No, not really.
No.
He's in skilled. Back at first.
They live right up around
Yeah.
that big White House on the corner of Easton
And
and
crusty. I remember yours was kind of crusty.
Yeah.
It looks tinier.
It's
his
smaller,
boys would have been
but
older
definitely
than
smaller.
yours. Not much though, Adam played soccer with him.
Brian said about. You know what I'm talking about?
Really good news. Got really awkward in here.
Everybody ready?
Sir.
Right. I now call the Norton City Council meeting of Monday, March 3rd, 2025 to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, as we gather here today, help us to make wise, sound decisions, Lord, that would honor you. Lord, we pray for our firefighters, for our troops, and for our police officers that protect us every day, and for our freedoms. Lord, we thank you for this time. In your name we pray. Amen. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Lukens.
Here.
Mr. Towsley.
Here.
Mr. Ader.
Here.
Ms. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Mowry.
Here.
Mr. Harper.
Here.
Mr. DeHarpart.
Here. And communications from the public, there are none this evening. I just want to call a point of order. Due to the agenda was changed around a little bit. We had Mr. Bensley here, our city engineer, and I'll actually just have Mr. Bensley come up and explain this OPWC grant funding that we were awarded for an emergency culvert repair. So, Mr. Bensley, if you want to just hit on that for a minute.
Yeah. So on February 3rd, Larry has sent me a message stating that there was a portion of the shoulder on State Route 21 that had eroded away. We did an investigation and found that there was a failure with the culvert that was underneath the road. We came up with a design and actually had Kavanaugh bid it out for us to give us a price on what it would take to replace it. With that information, we went to OPWC and requested a grant for emergency funding. We were notified on the 26th of February that they would be giving us $143,688, which roughly amounts to about 90% of the cost. Wow. The city will need to make up the difference, which is $15,965, and that will get the whole thing replaced. We'll do a concrete cap on top for now, and then with the road program, we'll mill it off and put new asphalt down on State Route 21.
Awesome. Well, I know that was it came up on short notice to council, and it's definitely an emergency thing. I heard it's in very, very bad shape.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you for getting the grant funding. I mean, that's a huge burden off the city of $140,000, and you do a really good job helping get some grants done. So I want to applaud you for that. I don't know if any other council members have any questions or anything.
Yes, Mr. President, I had a quick question. Actually, first off, thank you. Yeah, that's great that we're able to offset the cost that way. Where exactly is this on 21 again?
So it is just north of the Dorothy Court crossover, or Dorothy Avenue crossover. So it's just like probably a mile north of 585.
Oh, okay, great. And then
It's on the northbound side of State Route 21.
will 21 be closed at all? Like
It will
just
be,
down-
lane will be closed while they do the work, so they're going to part with it. So they'll do one side, close that lane down, and then they'll flip to the other side.
Okay. And do we have a tentative date when this would be?
Kavanaugh said that they could get it done in around a month.
Okay.
2 to 3 weeks of that time is to actually create the structures that we need to replace a catch basin. And then we're also doing some stuff on the slope beside it to help deviate the water a little bit better. So it's about a month,
Okay.
around a month.
All right.
A month to do or in a month?
A month to do. A month they'll be completely done with the project. Around a month. I'll get I had a schedule, but when we went after the funding, it kind of messed up the schedule a little bit. I'll get a new one shortly.
Okay.
Once Kavanaugh knows their award the project, we'll get an updated schedule, and I can provide that to everybody.
That was all I had. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Bensley. Appreciate it.
Yep.
So, to continue on my point of order, in the committee work session, the agenda that was sent out, it had, item number 2 in finance was the purchase of a 2025 Traverse. That didn't make it past BOC. We're gonna hold off a little while before we make that purchase. So 2025 will be the ordinance number for the OPWC fund, grant funding, just so everyone knows. So I would like to do a roll call for the amended agenda. I'll make a motion to amend the agenda.
I'll second.
Mr. Harbert, there's a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Harpart,
Yes.
Mr. Harbert,
Yes.
Mr. Lukens,
Yes.
Mr. Towesley,
Yes.
Mr. Ader,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Mowry.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha. Thank you, Mr. Harbert. Financial reports, I acknowledge the receipt of the financial reports from February 2025. Those are approved. And moving on to committee work session. Mr. Harbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will be ordinance number 23, 2025. Many years ago, Norton had a mayor's court here, and it's being, we're repealing Chapter 290 from the Norton codified ordinances. So it's pretty clear that the court was terminated a while back and not needed anymore. So anybody have any questions on that? I'll move to add ordinance 23-2025 to tonight's agenda for a first reading.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Harbert,
Yes.
Mr. Mowry,
Yes.
Mr. Towesley.
Yes.
And second item, Mr. President, is ordinance 24, 2025. We just discussed that. I'd like to also thank Mr. Bensley for the work getting the grant, covering 90% of the repair. I think we already had talk on this. Anybody else? Anything else? I'll make a motion to add ordinance 24, 2025 to tonight's agenda for a first reading.
Second that.
There's a motion and a second. I just wanted to state that the intent is to waive the readings and
Okay.
vote on this tonight. So it
Do I
wouldn't
need
be,
to-
yeah. So your intent would be to waive the
The
readings. and
intent
vote.
is to waive second and third readings and adopt.
There's a motion and a second to add ordinance 25, 20, or 24, 2025 to tonight's agenda. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Harbert,
Yes.
Mr. Mowry,
Yes.
Mr. Towesley.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on, service, Mr. Towesley.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the repair that was talked about earlier this evening on Route 21. 159,653, which 143,688 is covered by the OPWC grant. I'd like to make a motion to add that to tonight's agenda with the intentions of waiving the readings.
I will second. There's a motion and a second to adopt, or to move to add ordinance number 25, 2025 to tonight's agenda. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. DeHarpart?
Yes.
Mr. Ader?
Yes.
Thank you. Apologize, I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm struggling a little bit. Utilities, Mr. Mowry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance 26, 2025 tonight. It's for the renewal of the cell tower lease. And anyone have any questions or anything about that?
I had a couple questions, Mr. President.
Yep.
So this is renewal, and what term are we renewing this for? Because in the contract here, it says renewed for an additional 6 additional terms of 5 years.
So it's another 30 years.
So it's a 30-year term that we're
Yes.
signed for. And where is this at? Where is this?
If you read down about, I'd say 2/3 of the way, it talks about 6 5-year terms.
Yes.
Are you asking where the tower
no,
itself
I'm,
is?
yeah, where's the
Oh.
tower?
By the service garage.
Oh, okay.
The
Sorry.
tower by the
Little back
service
there?
garage.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I kind of have further questions on what Mr. Lucan said. In there, it says from 2042 to 2072. What's from now until 42?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
The current,
There's
So
an existing lease
There's
on
an
it now.
existing lease that council approved. This is extending that
For
30
another
years.
30.
They made the request for an additional 30-year term. They made the request, and Ms. Keener or maybe Mr. Lowry could talk about it, but my understanding is they need the longer term to go and market to people that place antennas on the cell towers. And without that longer term, that certainty of that longer term, it's hard for them to market. The more antennas they place, the more revenue we get. Is that correct?
So does the current term expire in 42?
42.
Okay.
Yes.
And we did get a $5,000 signing bonus, which initially they didn't offer, but I vetted this out to Windfall Consulting, who we use, and they were able to get us at least, $5,000 signing bonus.
What's our monthly or annual term that we're extending?
I've got it right here. I looked it up.
What?
So in 2022, we were paid $49,394. In 2023, and this was going to be my question, we were paid $87,851. I don't know, because then it drops back down. In 2024, it was budgeted at $51,340. In 2025, it's budgeted at $52,783.
Yeah, so we actually have two. We have Towerco and Crown Castle.
Oh,
So,
If I remember correctly, back a number of years ago, council, we agreed to a lease for those towers, and I thought that we got like $30,000 or something off.
that was from Crown Castle.
Okay,
This is Towerco. So they're not changing their monthly installment.
gotcha. Well, my question is, with one company offering us 30,000, one's only offering us 5,000, why the big difference?
Like I said, we
What-
use
Can we
Windfall.
get more zeros?
We use Windfall Consulting to vet it out and do the research for us, and this is the best we could get.
the 5,000.
Yep.
Okay, anyone else? Any questions? If not, then I take a motion to add tonight's agenda, 26, 2025.
A second.
There's a motion and a second to add ordinance 26, 2025 to tonight's agenda. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Bowery?
Yes.
Mr. Harbert?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to our public hearing. I now declare the public hearing conveyed for March 3rd, 2025. This is for resolution number 21, 2025. A resolution to approve the renewal for placement of farmland located at 3580 South Hametown Road in an agricultural district. Will the clerk please certify the legal notice was published in the Barberton Gazette and the Norton News on February 13th, 2025?
I so certify.
Thank you. I'll now ask 3 times if there's anyone here that wishes to speak for the said ordinance. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak for the said ordinance? And is there anyone here that wishes to speak for the said ordinance? Now I'll ask 3 times if there's anyone here that wants to speak no against the said ordinance. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak and say no against the said ordinance? Is there anyone here that wishes to speak no against the said ordinance? And is there anyone here that wishes to speak no against the said ordinance? Being none, this is closed. We will now continue on to consideration of minutes. And the minutes of February 18th, 2025, those minutes are approved as submitted. Reports from officers, boards, and commissions. Mayor Zita.
Thank you. Just have a couple things. Just want to announce that all current information that we have regarding the electric and gas aggregation is all on the city website, www.cityofnorton.org. So if you're looking for information regarding any city electric or gas aggregate, go to the website, please. Second, I've got Green Up Day, April 26th. Rain date is May 3rd. That is also published on the www.cityofnorton.org site under the Community tab with information/registration forms. And then third, I've got Backham and the Barberton VFW are hosting a wrestling event on March 8th. Basically, I have information here. It's called Magic Mania 1. It's live pro wrestling. It's Saturday, March 8th, 2025. Doors open at 6 p.m. Wrestling starts at 7. Advanced ticket sales, VIP seating is $30. General admission is $20. It says at the door it's $5 more. It's Barberton High School is where the event will take place. So anybody interested in going out seeing live pro wrestling, now is your opportunity to do so. So that is all I have for now. Thank you.
Mr. President, could I ask the mayor a question? real
Yes.
quick? Actually, NOPEC, I was going to bring up under non-agenda items. Is that both gas and electric, did you say, is on the website?
Yes.
And that's both rates and terms for the upcoming deals?
Yes.
Okay. I had a couple residents asking me and said they've watched meetings and are confused. So I just want to clarify that it is on the city's website.
I was going to bring it up for a non-agenda as well. Mr. Towsley, it's 3/19 is when the mailing will be going out to the residents, the week of 3/19. So that'll be the opt-out information if they're interested in opting out of NOPEC Electric. But all the information as of today, I think Emma just loaded
Yeah.
additional information. There's a FAQ on there that people can ask, or get on there and read about any questions they may have. You had the question about the 2-year re-enrollment fee if they had opted out at one time. There's an answer on that on the FAQ on the website as well.
Great.
So should have everything they need on there.
And the gas mailings, I assume, will be shortly after the electric.
Yes.
Okay. And I'd like to thank everybody down there for helping me with that and getting it on the website. 'Cause I ran into a lot of confusion last week, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Towsley. Mr. Lowry, anything this evening?
Just two things. Street Department is looking to hire their annual seasonal workers. We're looking for up to 10. You need to have a valid driver's license, and information's on the website. And work began today on the Veterans Memorial. Electrician was on site doing some work in the community center, getting ready to go. That's all.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Lowry. Ms. Keener, anything?
Nothing this evening, other than our 2024 audit has begun.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And Mr. Markey?
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Introduction of new legislation, ordinance number 23, 2025. Mr. Harbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance number 23-2025 for its first reading. Ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance repealing Chapter 290 of the codified ordinances of the city of Norton, Ohio.
Thank you. That's first reading only.
Thank you, Mr. Harbert. Ordinance number 24, 2025. Mr. Harbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance number 24-2025 for its first reading. Ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the submission of an application to and for the administrative officer to enter into agreements with the Public Works Commission for financial assistance through the State Capital Improvement Program for an emergency repair of a culvert on State Route 21 and declaring an emergency.
At this time, I would make a motion to waive the second and third readings.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to waive the readings. Will clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Harbert,
Yes.
Mr. Towesley,
Yes.
Mr. Lukens,
Yes.
Mr. Ader,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Mowry,
Yes.
Mr. DeHarpert.
Yes.
Sorry.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 24, 2025.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 24, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. DeHarpert?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
It's Mr. Harbert.
Yes.
It always confuses us.
Mr. Towesley,
Yes.
Judith, Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Ader,
Yes.
Mr. Mowry,
Yes.
Mr. DeHarpert.
Yes again. Moving on to ordinance number 25, 2025. Mr. Towesley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance number 25, 2025 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing an agreement with Kavanaugh Building Corporation for the emergency repair of a stormwater and restoration and grading on State Route 21 within the city in the amount of $159,653 and declaring an emergency.
And this is the legislation that goes with what we just passed and that was spoken about earlier this evening. With that, I'd like to make a motion to waive the second and third reading.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to waive the readings on ordinance 25, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Towesley,
Yes.
Mr. Lukens.
Yes.
Mr. Ader,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Mowry,
Yes.
Mr. Harbert,
Yes.
Mr. DeHarpert.
Yes.
Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 25, 2025.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 25, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Towesley,
Yes.
Mr. Lukens.
Yes.
Mr. Ader,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Mowry,
Yes.
Mr. Harbert,
Yes.
Mr. DeHarpert.
Yes. Ordinance number 26, 2025. Mr. Mowry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now offer ordinance 26, 2025 for its first reading. And our clerk read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the administrative officer to execute and deliver an amendment to a cell tower ground lease with Tower Co. 2013 LLC and declaring an emergency.
First reading only.
Thank you, Mr. Mallory. And for matters referred, there was nothing this evening. Introduction of prior legislation. Ordinance number 20-2025. Mr. Harbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. For ordinance number 20, 2025 for its second reading, ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of VIP Cloud and VIP Cloud Analysis software from Software Solutions at a cost not to exceed $16,000 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. That's second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Harbert. Resolution number 21, 2025, that is mine. I'd like to offer resolution number 21, 2025 for its second reading, and I ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution to approve the renewal of placement for farmland located at 3580 South Hametown Road in an agricultural district.
Thank you. That's second reading only. Ordinance number 22-2025. Mr. Towesley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance number 22, 2025 for its second reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the administrative officer to execute and deliver an equipment sharing agreement with the city of Rittman.
Thank you. That's the second reading.
Thank you. Ordinance number 12-2025.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance number 12-2025 for its third reading. Ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing all actions necessary to accept Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, 2025 Energized Community Grant and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. So that's the third reading. This is the NOPEC Energized Community Grant. It's $25,000 going towards War Veterans Memorial.
Mural.
The mural. Any questions? I make a motion to adopt ordinance 12, 2025.
Second that.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 12-2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Harbert?
Yes.
Mr. Mowry?
Yes.
Mr. Lukens?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Ader?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. DeHarpart?
Yes. Moving on to ordinance number 15, 2025. That is Mr. Lukens.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to offer ordinance number 15-2025 for its third reading and ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances, approving, adopting, and enacting new matter in the updated and revised codified ordinances, repealing ordinances and resolutions in conflict therewith, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, with that being the third reading, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 15-2025.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 15, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Lukens?
Yes.
Mr. Harbert?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Ader?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Mowry?
Yes.
Mr. DeHarpart?
Yes. Moving on to ordinance number 16, 2025. Mr. Lukens.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to offer ordinance number 16-2025 for its third reading and ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to add chapter 1433 of the codified ordinances of the city of Norton related to creating electric vehicle charging stations, EVCS.
Okay, thank you. That was for the third reading, so I would like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 16-2025.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 16, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Lukens?
Yes.
Mr. Harbert?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Ader?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Mowry?
Yes.
Mr. DeHarpart?
Yes. Moving on to ordinance number 17-2025. Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd offer ordinance number 17, 2025 for its third reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of real property from Summit Property Management Incorporated and declaring an emergency.
And with that being the third reading, I'd like to move to adopt ordinance number 17-2025.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 17, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lukens?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Ader?
Yes.
Mr. Mowry?
Yes.
Mr. Harbert?
Yes.
Mr. DeHarpart?
I abstain. Moving on to ordinance number 18, 2025. Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance number 18, 2025 for its third reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing certain city properties as no longer needed for municipal purposes and declaring an emergency.
And with that too being the third reading, I move to adopt ordinance number 18-2025.
I will second that.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 18, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lukens?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Ader?
Yes.
Mr. Mowry?
Yes.
Mr. Harbert?
Yes.
Mr. DeHarpart?
Yes. And moving on to ordinance number 19, 2025. Mr. Harbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance number 19, 2025 for its third reading. Ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing a transfer from the general fund for calendar year 2025 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. That's third reading, and this is authorizing a transfer from the general fund for calendar year 2025. Are there any questions, comments? I move to adopt ordinance number 19, 2025.
I'll second.
Go ahead.
Mr. Towesley, do it. There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 19, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Harbert?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Lukens?
Yes.
Mr. Ader?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Mowry?
Yes.
Mr. DeHarpart?
Yes. Moving on to public service announcements. Anything this evening, Mayor Zita?
I have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Lowry?
I just want to thank council for your adoption of ordinance number 17. I think it shows real vision for the future of the city.
Thank you. We appreciate that. I will say, I do have a public service announcement. Last year, at the end of the year, into summer, we decided to do a fishing derby in the ponds here in Columbia Woods. It was a great event. It was put together very fast. We had 100 kids come, and we gave trophies away for the biggest fish and a trophy for the smallest fish. And I think I enjoyed watching the kids try to catch the smallest fish more than I enjoyed watching the kids try to catch the biggest fish, because these kids were bringing these little minnows over, and we were running them on a tape measure, and it was just really cool to see the kids wanting to be outdoors, spend time with their moms and dads, aunts, uncles, grandma and grandpas, and it was a really cool thing. Mayor Zeta was there, was a great part of it. We had the Ohio DNR was there. We had an ice cream truck.
Mr. Harbert was there.
Mr. Harbert was there, and yeah, he was taking fish off the hook.
Yeah, there was a lot of fish.
Actually, taking hook out of people too.
Yeah, one
Yeah.
hook out of a person.
So
Stuck myself a couple of
yeah,
times.
right. But it was a really good time. I think this is exactly why we have the parks that we have, where families can come and enjoy it. So we all work together May 31st from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and June 14th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Columbia Lake Woods. We will have another fishing derby. There will be a registration number to call. They'll be posted on social media where you'll call in. You'll speak to Emma, and she will get you registered. This is for Norton residents only, and it's going to be a really, really good time. So I appreciate the administration helping set this thing up again, because it was a really enjoyable part of my summer. I really, really liked it. So that's all I have.
Mr. President, I just wanted to say I appreciate you doing that. You know, I share the outdoor love of the outdoors like you do, and I think it's great to have the kids, especially a resource that we already have. It's
Sure.
just sitting there, so we might as well use it, even if it's just, a couple events a year where people are actually allowed to fish in there.
Yep.
You said May 31st?
Yep. May 31st from 10 a.m. to noon.
Okay.
And then June 14th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay.
And there will be flyers going out. You'll see social media posts probably tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, kudos to everybody. Thank you.
All right. Topics for next meeting. Anybody have anything that they'd like to discuss for next meeting? None? Okay. Non-agenda items? Any non-agenda items?
I had something, Mr. President. I mean, the roads are obviously getting beat up pretty bad. We're getting a lot of. I just got email right before I came to the meeting, and I know it's not anybody's fault in particular, but it just seems like, man, the winter is really being rough on our roads this year. We're going to have a busy street department coming up, fixing a lot of these holes, and it seems like I'm getting a call like once a week now where the roads are just all of a sudden these potholes are just coming out of nowhere.
Yep.
So.
Mr. President, I think at one time you mentioned there was a shortage of cold patch.
Yep.
Are we,
Should be fine now because
We're
the
okay now?
temperatures have been warmer.
Yeah.
It was because it was so cold.
okay,
And the asphalt plants are opening back up now, so that will help with that.
thank you.
Yep. All right, no more non-agenda items. At this time, I would, we'll enter into executive session to consider the compensation of a public employee or official, and review the negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment as defined in ORC 121.22 G1 and ORC 121.22 G4 in the Norton City Charter sections 3.121, 3.124 respectively. I would like to invite council and Mr. Markey into the executive session. After the executive session, there is no further council business, and council will adjourn after the executive session. So, yep, so I need a motion and a second to go into executive session.
I'll second.
Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Harper?
Yes?
Mr. Lukens?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Ader?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Mowry?
Yes.
Mr. Harbert?
Yes.
Thank you. We will now move into executive session.
I'm just kind of shocked by the, I mean, it's fine, but I just,
Typically, he should have asked you ahead of time.
I mean, we talked about it, and I told him if I was him, I would, but he should have said, you know, just out of abundance of caution.
Good night.
Bring them back in or no?
No, they don't.
They're good.
All right.
They're gone.
Back in meeting, I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.